Hey, fourth grade, it's Mrs. Wright here. It is, gosh, what day is it? It's Tuesday, March 31st, the end of March. Thank goodness, right? Oh my goodness, what a long month it has been. Well, we're starting a new month tomorrow. Thank goodness. April. April showers bring May flowers. Let's hope. Get rid of some of this pollen. So today we are on to chapter 16 of Homer P. Figg. So let's find out what is happening with Homer, because he knows something's up with this guy. This chapter is called Frank T. Nibley, entirely at your service. An old cobblestone street led to Portland Harbor, and everybody at the train station said, "We can't miss it. Our feet will tell us when we get there, but miss it we do." Seems that Mr. Willow hasn't got more sense of direction than a blind kitten, and won't stop to ask along the way because he's afraid of pickpockets and thieves. "A great man has entrusted me with a sum of money," he mutters to himself, checking his pockets. "I dare not risk it. I've got my eyes peeled for lowlifes, figuring a city like Portland might have its own version of smelt and stink lurking about, but we don't run into anybody that fits that description. Matter of fact, no one seems to be paying us any mind as we wander through fine neighborhoods of big houses shaded by giant elm trees." "Oh dear," said Mr. Willow, "I seem to have gotten turned around again. Didn't we pass that yellow house before?" "Twice," I tell him. We're heading uphill." "Indeed we are," he says. "Are you adverse to going uphill?" "I expect the water part of the city will be downhill, Mr. Willow." "Really?" he asks, as if shocked by the idea. "Extraordinary." "Let's go downhill for a while," I suggest. "See where it takes us." Mr. Willow let me tug him along by the sleeve, and in a few minutes we get clear of the big elm trees and see the sparkling harbor lay out before us. The port is packed with ships of every size and shape. There are schooners and paddle wheel ships and sloops and ferry boats and wherries and more kinds of vessels than I ever imagined, all crowded together along the waterfront like bees trying to feed at a hive. "Oh my," says Mr. Willow, staring in wonder. "Oh my, oh my." Now that we can see where we're headed and keep the busy harbor in sight, we're able to cut through the side streets and down the pretty hills until finally we find the promised cobblestones under our feet, and the big iron gates to the steamship lie dead ahead. The cobblestones are mobbed with people in a hurry to get where they're going. Fine people in fine clothes, and working men in rags, and police and sailors. Boys no older than me are loading carts and smoking clay pipes and looking very superior. "Look out! Make way!" When a fast carriage comes through, rattling over the stones, we have to step quickly to the side or risk getting run down. That's how we happen to make the acquaintance of the beautiful Kate Nibley and her brother Frank. In her rush to avoid the carriage and keep her skirt clear of the filthy street, Miss Nibley somehow bumps into Mr. Willow and ends up sprawled in his long, skinny arms. "Dear me," he exclaims, finding her there. "Oh my!" "Thank you, kind sir," she says, fluttering a pair of soft gloves at his twitching nose. "You have saved me from ruining my dress." Before Mr. Willow can answer, I hear another voice coming up quickly behind us. "Sister, are you okay? Have you been injured?" That's her brother Frank, who looks to be about Mr. Willow's age and is dressed like a prosperous gentleman with a finely tailored suit, a gold chain to hold his pocket watch, gleaming leather shoes, and a mustache that curls up at the ends. Once he realizes what has happened, that the skinny clergyman has saved his sister from falling down, or worse, he can't thank Mr. Willow enough. "My dear fellow," he exclaims, seizing Mr. Willow's hands and shaking it. "Well done, well done. Kate, have you thanked this brave gentleman?" "Yes, brother," she said, sounding very sweet and meek. "I have let him kiss my gloves." Mr. Willow's face gets red as a ripe tomato, but he seems very pleased with himself. Frank looks things over, a big smile on his face, and his friendly eyes glint with humor. "Kissed her gloves, did you? Why, that's practically a proposal of marriage." Mr. Willow commenced to shudder and squeak like a tea kettle coming to a boil, but Frank laughs and claps him on the back. I jest, sir, a joke, and for being such a good sport, I must insist that we join you for a bite to eat. Oh, no, says Mr. Willow, blushing some more. Can't, mustn't, we have a steamship to catch. Really? What ship, pray tell? The Orion, says Mr. Willow, bound for New York. Frank and his sister look at each other and burst out laughing. Excuse me, says Frank, when he gets his breath back. No insult intended, but it seems we will be shipmates, for Kate and I have booked the same ship for the same destination. Amazing, said Mr. Willow, his jaw dropping open in wonder. Not so very amazing, says Frank, easily slipping his arm into Mr. Willow's and steering him towards the waterfront. Half the folks on this street are heading for the steamships. But never mind. Fate is fate, and now you really must join us for muffins and chocolate. The good ship Orion won't leave for 2 hours yet, so there is plenty of time to get acquainted. And who is this? Kate asks, flicking her gloves in my head. Your servant boy? Can't say he's doing much for you. Something about the way she flicks those gloves, something about a very cool look in her beautiful gray eyes, something about Kate Nibley just gets my goat. So I snatch the gloves from her. From her hand. Why she's carrying them instead of wearing them anyhow. And I drop them in the gutter. Miss Nibley stares at me in disbelief. I'm expecting her to get angry, but instead she sighs and says, I take it you are no servant boy. No, ma'am. I am Homer Figg, and Mr. Willow is my temporary guardian until we get to New York to find my brother Harold, except it looks like I'm going to be guarding him. Mr. Willow, I mean. He's a nice man, but he hasn't the sense that God gave to a billy goat. Homer, says Mr. Willow, momentarily distracted. What's that you say? Told her that you were a clergyman, Mr. Willow. What an interesting boy, Kate says, retrieving her gloves. I just know we're going to be great friends. She smiles at me and then gives her brother a look, like she wants him to pay attention to something important. And then Frank Nibley suddenly grins and claps his hands together and says, Homer Figg, splendid. So you're the cause of this journey, are you? He reaches out, shakes my hand before I can snatch it away. I've forgotten my manners. Allow me to introduce myself. Frank T. Nibley, attorney at law, justice of the peace, and entirely at your service. Here's something I don't know, but soon found out. When a lawyer shakes your hand and smiles with just his teeth, you best run for your life. So, Homer, he's got a good sense about people. He does not trust these people right off the bat. He doesn't really trust what they're saying and what they're doing. Whereas Mr. Willow seems to be a little bit naive. Naive means that he kind of trusts everything and believes what everybody says. So these two might just be playing a role in what's coming. So we will find out what happens tomorrow. And I miss you guys, and I hope you are being good. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye.